What's going on, everybody? This is Steve Sterling with Sentinel 17 Gaming. Thank you so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate it. Also, feel free to check out my other videos on my YouTube channel as well. Now, this video is about Prototype, the franchise. It belongs to Activision, and we haven't seen it in quite some time, 8 years to be exact. The first Prototype game released on 7th generation consoles, the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, and for Microsoft Windows. It was developed by Radical Entertainment and published by Activision in June of 2009. Now, unfortunately for Prototype, another game of the same type was being released as a PlayStation exclusive for the PS3, Infamous, which actually released the month prior in May 2009 and stole a lot of Prototype's glory, which ultimately led to it not being as successful as it could have been. Now, to Prototype's credit, it did have a lot going right for it. It had a huge open world in New York City, whereas Infamous, its competition, was set in a fictional version of New York City called Empire City. Prototype allowed you to take the fight to different military units that were occupying the city throughout the course of the game. It allowed you to unlock a number of superpowers that really gave you different ways to fight the bad guys. And not just the military, there were different mutants of this particular strain that exists within the game that you'd have to fight. So Prototype had a lot of different elements to it that gave you different ways to combat enemies, different ways to experience the game, and it was this very comprehensive approach at Prototype, which made it memorable and in some ways made it actually better than Infamous. From its release in the summer of 2009 until March of 2012, right before Prototype 2 came out, the first Prototype sold over 2 million copies. However, Prototype 2 wouldn't see the same level of success. It sold significantly less than the first Prototype, and Radical Entertainment had actually stated that this was the reason why they downsized a lot of their staff and why the majority of the people who had worked for Radical Entertainment were folded into other departments within Activision, which is sad because Radical Entertainment was extremely talented, and it's unfortunate that Prototype 2's sales not being up to par for what Activision expected were the reason for it eventually getting folded into other different Activision studios. While the story does sound very negative and like it's going to end on a sad note, Activision in the 8th generation of consoles, namely PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, released a Biohazard bundle, which was Prototype 1 and 2. For whatever reason. They didn't announce this prior, and it kind of came out of the blue as if they were testing the waters to see if people were still interested in this franchise. And I think that's kind of an indicator that they may be contemplating eventually coming back to this franchise. There are probably a number of different Activision IPs that they could have released a bundle for or a remastered version, but the fact that they chose to put Prototype 1 and 2 in a, again, Biohazard bundle and release it for the 8th generation of consoles, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, means that there's someone at Activision that still understands that gamers do want to see a Prototype 3, which of course is the title of this video, and that's the whole purpose behind giving the background of Prototype 1 and 2, is to look at kind of where they stumbled and kind of discuss whether there is potential for this franchise ever to come back under current Activision leadership. The general sentiment about Activision is that if it's not a multiplayer focused game, or it's not a game that they can nickel and dime players with, that works basically as a games as a service type of title, that they're not going to be interested in it. Now, of course, this is evident with Overwatch, which has no single player content whatsoever. It's straight multiplayer, and of course it is Activision Blizzard. And then you have Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which a lot of people argue is one of the best multiplayer Call of Duty games there is, but it had no single player as well. And the very next year, Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out, and it brought back single player. So it's evident that Activision knows that there is there is a demand for single player content. Now keep in mind, Prototype is single player focused. You exist as a superhero, or truly as an anti-hero, in a huge open world sandbox style environment, and you have superpowers and you're taking it to the bad guys. And I think that they understand that there is this demand. And again, with the Biohazard bundle, that's kind of a glimmer of hope for this franchise, that there could be a Prototype 3 sometime in the future. I don't think it'll be developed by Radical because they've been gutted by Activision, but I think there is a possibility that we could see it sometime within the next console generation. Who knows if they're even thinking about it actively. I do think with the hiatus, though, Prototype 3 or a Prototype reboot would sell a lot of copies. What do you think? Are you looking forward to Prototype 3? Do you want to see the franchise come back? Feel free to let me know in the comment section below. As always, thank you so much for checking out this video. Also, feel free to check out my other videos on my YouTube channel, and feel free to follow me on Twitter at Sentinel17.